harum sin mas ibet baya. Imhotep in sumpike sitsue yatue.
No! Isn't it high time we discuss what didn't quite click with Universal's Dark Universe? And are we really getting Keanu Reeves in the lead for the Mummy Resurrection reboot? Let's dive into all the details we've got so far. Let's delve into what we know about Keanu Reeves potentially starring in the new Mummy reboot. If Reeves joins Universal's once thriving Dark Universe, it could pose a significant competition for DC movies among Universal's horror adventure lineup fans. So far, there's been no news of a new Mummy movie, whether it's a remake, reboot, or sequel, let alone any details being kept under wraps. Pun intended. However, if Universal manages to get things back on track for a fresh start, Reeves could be the perfect choice to fill the shoes of the franchise's leading superstar, a role previously held by Tom Cruise. Cruise's stint with the Mummy franchise didn't quite reach the level of fame attained by his other endeavors, nor did it pave the way for further films. But perhaps his return to the fan-favorite role could signal a potential pathway for Brendan Fraser's comeback in The Mummy 4, leveraging the passage of time much like successful sequels such as Bad Boys for Life, Rambo: Last Blood, and Top Gun: Maverick. Speaking of Maverick, its success decades after the original film's release demonstrates the power of nostalgia and effective storytelling, elements that a potential Mummy 4 could harness by deviating from its previous formula and exploring new narrative avenues. As for the rumors swirling around, it's not the first time we've heard of bogus Mummy casting rumors, with previous speculation even involving Dwayne Johnson in the lead role. The 2017 attempt at a Mummy reboot starring Tom Cruise didn't fare well at the box office, failing to kickstart Universal's ambitious Dark Universe plans. Brendan Fraser's openness to returning for a fourth film, coupled with Keanu Reeves' busy schedule with projects like Outcome and the next John Wick installment, suggests that while Reeves may not be battling mummies on screen, there's plenty in store for fans to look forward to. With that being said, the Mummy reboot steers clear of the story pitfalls that tanked the franchise in the past, and that goes for both Keanu Reeves and a potential fourth installment with Brendan Fraser. With a hefty gap since the last movie back in 2008, The Mummy 4 has a shot at dodging the missteps of its predecessors. You remember how the whole undead monster versus O'Connell showdown got a bit stale by the third film, right? Well, now there's been enough time to hit the reset button and start fresh. A return from Brendan Fraser would mean addressing the time gap and catching up on what Rick O'Connell and the gang have been up to. It's a chance to breathe new life into the franchise, mixing nostalgia with some much-needed reinvention. Imagine getting the lowdown on our beloved characters and seeing where they've ended up since we last saw them. It's the kind of fresh take that could reignite excitement for the Mummy series and wash away the memories of its less successful outings. Now, let's dive into what went wrong with Universal's Dark Universe. Back in May 2017, Universal Pictures dropped a bomb of excitement with a star-studded publicity photo showcasing big names like Tom Cruise, Russell Crowe, and Javier Bardem, all set to take on roles in The Mummy and future Dark Universe films. It was a tantalizing glimpse into what could have been a blockbuster cinematic universe. But alas, that excitement was short-lived, as within a year, the entire project was scrapped. The origins of the Dark Universe trace back to the massive success of the Avengers in 2010, proving that audiences were hungry for interconnected storytelling on the big screen. Universal jumped on the bandwagon, announcing in July 2014 that Alex Kurtzman and Chris Morgan would helm a project to bring the Universal monsters together in one cohesive universe. This move aimed to replicate the success of Marvel's cinematic universe. Back in the day, characters like Dracula and the Wolfman had their own solo outings without any thought of existing in the same universe. But Universal wanted to change that, putting blockbuster talent like Kurtzman, known for Star Trek and Transformers, and Morgan, the mastermind behind the Fast and Furious saga, at the helm. Initially, the plan was to reboot The Mummy in April 2016 as the kickoff to this grand cinematic venture. Rumors even circulated that Dracula Untold, released in October 2014, might be retrofitted to fit into this new universe, with Luke Evans' Dracula potentially serving as its Nick Fury equivalent. However, Dracula Untold was ultimately left behind, leaving The Mummy as the sole starting point. In November 2015, the minds behind the Dark Universe spoke to Variety, touting the appeal of turning these classic monsters into darker, more relatable superheroes, contrasting them with the typically flawless heroes of the Marvel Universe. The casting of Tom Cruise for The Mummy set a precedent for attracting big-name stars to future Dark Universe projects. Despite these ambitious plans, the Dark Universe quickly crumbled, leaving behind only the memory of what could have been a monstrous success. The Mummy was intended to serve as the launchpad for the Dark Universe, setting the stage for a series of interconnected franchise installments. But that wasn't its only purpose in shaping the future of the cinematic universe. Within the film, protagonist Nick Morton, portrayed by Tom Cruise, ventures into a facility owned by Prodigium, a corporation tasked with tracking monsters worldwide. Here, glimpses of creatures like the creature from the Black Lagoon tease audiences, all under the watchful eye of Dr. Jekyll, portrayed by Russell Crowe. Interestingly, Dr. Jekyll was not originally part of the classic Universal Monsters lore, marking his debut in any Universal Monsters media. Another intriguing aspect arises from how Morton ultimately dispatches the titular mummy, portrayed by Sofia Boutella, at a significant personal cost. This leaves Morton's fate and physical state uncertain, with the film deliberately shrouding him in ambiguity. This move appears calculated to leave room for future Dark Universe films to explore and expand upon Morton's character and his consequences. As The Mummy approached its June 2017 premiere, plans for subsequent Dark Universe projects began to crystallize. In February 2016, it was announced that Johnny Depp would star in a fresh adaptation of The Invisible Man, continuing the trend of casting A-listers as iconic monsters. Following suit, in April 2017, Bill Condon signed on to direct a reimagining of The Bride of Frankenstein, with Javier Bardem and Angelina Jolie eyed for key roles. These developments signaled the ambitious scope of the Dark Universe, with plans for interconnected stories and star-studded casts driving anticipation for what lay ahead. The Mummy was supposed to be the cornerstone of the Dark Universe, but unfortunately, it ended up being more of a stumbling block. Just before its release, Universal was already making plans for Dwayne Johnson to take on a new version of the Wolfman, while Bride of Frankenstein had a slated release for February 2019. With such high expectations and a lineup of projects in the pipeline, The Mummy had a lot riding on its success. However, it quickly became evident that things were not going as planned. The film received scathing reviews and was predicted to lose nearly $100 million for Universal. Initially, there was hope that the Dark Universe could learn from The Mummy and continue forward. Reports even surfaced of Channing Tatum being considered for Van Helsing shortly after the film's disappointing performance. However, by October 2017, it was clear that the Dark Universe was in trouble when Bride of Frankenstein was put on hold and eventually shelved. By January 2019, the entire saga was deemed obsolete. The failure of the Dark Universe can be attributed to its departure from what made classic monster stories great. Instead of embracing the gothic atmospheres and eerie storytelling of the past, it opted for CGI-heavy spectacles that lacked the charm of the originals. Meanwhile, films like It found success by staying true to their horror roots. The Mummy's failure stands in stark contrast to the resurgence of horror in cinema, serving as a reminder of the sacrifices made in pursuit of broad appeal. Although the Dark Universe may be dead and buried, Universal hasn't completely abandoned the idea of interconnected monster films. Renfield, released in 2023, tied its plot to the original Bela Lugosi Dracula movies, suggesting a larger cinematic universe. Similarly, upcoming projects like the 2024 remake of The Wolfman hint at a continued interest in reimagining classic monsters. While these endeavors may not reach the heights of the Dark Universe, they show that the idea of uniting Universal Monsters films is still alive. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Your suggestions for future videos are always welcome in the comments below.